Hi there. I'm Sherry Hayes. I'm the mom of 15 kids, and I've been homeschooling for over 3 decades. And today we're going to be talking about whether or not a person should have another child. It's a big conundrum. And there are certain things you have to think about when you're making this decision. But there's one ultimate question you need to ask yourself, and we're going to get to that. But first, I'd like to explain just a few things and just give you some information. Okay, so according to government numbers, to raise one child is supposed to cost a person, this is from 0 to 17, not including college, it's supposed to cost a person $313,000. Okay, now that works out to $18,400 per year per child, or $1,530 per month. Now, this does not include the costs that just the mom and dad require. Basic housing and food and clothing and everything just for a husband and a wife. This is extra above that. All right. Now, 3 children at this rate would cost $4,602 per month, which works out to $55,224 per year. And if you had 10 children, which is huge family, right? It's supposed to cost $15,300 per month. That's per month. That's not per year. That's $15,000 per month, and $183,600 per year. That sounds like too much, and it's not really real numbers. We'll talk about that. Now, 15 children, which was the size of the family that we raised, is supposed to cost $22,000 extra every month, or $275,950 per year, or $4,681,800 in total. Did you catch that? I'll say it again. $4,681,800. That's a lot of money, right? Now, that's absolutely insane, right? Because, why do I say that? Because I actually calculated how much money my husband made over the last 42 years. Now, we still have one minor child at home, but over the last 42 years, raising our 15 children and adjusting for inflation, I tried my best. It looks like we have barely made over $1 million. It's supposed to cost $5 million. Okay. Now, you may be wrestling with the question of how much of a family you can afford. And you're looking for details, and you're hoping to find information that will help you make a responsible decision. Now, when I was researching this online, I discovered that there are all kinds of lists for people, like milestones you have to reach, and they're financial milestones mostly. So you're supposed to have these like 4 or 5 different money milestones reached before you can have another child, right? And so I don't necessarily agree with any of that, and I'm going to explain that even further. And I'm hoping that in giving you this information that I'm going to give you today, that it'll help you move forward without fear. Okay. Now, neither my husband nor I came from money or privilege. We were both raised by single moms. My husband actually, at one point in his childhood, was living in a migrant shack in the wintertime. You could see outside through the cracks. And this is like November, December time. And, his mom was really, really poor. I actually lived on the wrong side of the tracks. I lived in a trailer court in a trailer right behind a topless bar. Now, that my mom didn't realize that when she actually moved us there, but I had to walk past that topless bar in order to catch the bus every morning. So we didn't have much hope. I mean, people didn't put much stock in our future. They thought, you come from there, you're not going to amount to much, right? But Jesus made all the difference in our lives, and he came into our lives separately because we were both teens when we came to the Lord, but he's 8 years older than I am. But he gave us hope, and he gave us reasons to change our trajectory. We weren't just going to be partiers that just barely scraped by, and we had nothing to show for ourselves. Okay, because of our faith in God, we both had a hope for a brighter future, and in that future was included a lasting marriage and a stable home. Those are the two things that we thought were important to us. Now, within our hopes and dreams, of course, we were expecting children to show up, but from the beginning, our finances were tight. Remember, we didn't have much to begin with, and we were just trying to build. Okay, at a certain time after I was expecting our second child, we were homeless for a few months, and that's a hard situation. Eventually, after jumping around to different people's houses, we finally were able to afford our own little shack. It was a shack. It was a tourist shack. It was a tourist, I don't know, it was a tourist shack. They had a whole bunch of these in the older part of our town because our town was based on a lot of tourism. It's like close to the mountains and really pretty. And so we had this little shack, and it was like maybe 8 or 10 feet by 20. So there wasn't much room for anything, but we thought it was heavenly because it was our own space. And at that time there was a recession, and jobs were so hard to get. My husband went for a construction supply company delivery job. And when he got there, there were 40 men standing outside in a line waiting to go in and apply. And he was in his late 20s. They were in their 30s and 40s because, see, the construction industry had kind of shut down in our area. And so there were no jobs. But my husband was able to really, work on the people. and he got this job. And guess how much this job paid? Remember, there's 40 guys waiting for this job. This job paid $3.35 an hour, which was minimum wage in 1985. And within that wage, we had to come up with rent. We had a car payment, we had like gas and maintenance on that car, and we had insurance, and we had food, and there was nothing left over for clothing or entertainment or anything else, right? And I was expecting a little boy, remember, and our first child was a little girl, so I had all kinds of little girl clothes, but I didn't have one stitch of a little boy's outfit. I couldn't imagine sticking him in a pink sleeper, right? And we were at church, and we just prayed. We kept a prayer list, and we would write down our needs and then trust that God was going to need them. Well, after church one day, a friend of mine said, "Hey, did you see there's some boxes of baby clothes underneath that table in the back? Why don't you go take a peek at it?" So I went over there, and there were some of the most beautiful outfits. These were not the Kmart outfits. Okay, Kmart was the store back then. These were not the Kmart outfits. These were like the mall outfits. They were so gorgeous, and they were in pristine condition, and there were enough outfits to last my son until he was 2. They were wonderful. I used them for subsequent children. They were so nice. And that's just one story of provision in a long string, right? Because we knew we had a big, big God. Throughout the last 42 years, we have seen fat times and we've seen lean times. There have been great jobs and great job loss. There have been nice big houses and small houses where we had to practice ingenuity. With each new pregnancy, we had to ask the same question. And this is the question I want to pose to you. This is the question you need to ask yourself. This is really the only one that counts. All right? And here it is. Are you ready? Drum roll. It is, do we trust God? Not one of us knows the future. Will there be great wealth and prosperity? Maybe. Will there be lean times when we barely scrape by? Maybe. You've probably watched the movie The Sound of Music, and it's based on a true story of the Von Trapp family singers. And at the first part of the movie, you see that Baron Von Trapp, he's really rich, and he has this beautiful villa, and he doesn't ever even think of money or anything. And that's true. That's true to their lives. Baron Von Trapp was really well off, and he owned a 22-room villa. And it has beautiful grounds, and it's still there in Salzburg, Austria. And so he had 7 children, and he married Maria Von Trapp because his first wife had died. And they went on to have 2 more children. But what you don't know about is that before they went to America, he actually lost all his money. And so they were not living very well. They were making it, but barely. And that was just before the war. And then during the war, then of course, right, they had to leave to America, and they left with the clothes on their backs. And when they got to America, they struggled for a long time. Now, eventually, they bought their own ski lodge in Vermont. So that's kind of cool. But, they had 7 children, and then things got hard, and then things got better. That's how life goes. We can't try to predetermine every step we make based on all the things we have in place, right? Now, one thing my husband and I have learned is this. No matter what we have struggled with, there is not one of our children that we would do without. They're all precious to us. We can't imagine our lives without even one of our children. They have given us so much joy. They've given us purpose. They've helped us grow as individuals. You know what? We wouldn't put one of them back. And that's always the question. One person said that her dad kept saying, "How come you keep having kids?" And she said, "Dad, which one do you want me to throw back?" And he loved her kids too, and he couldn't think of any. Now, the human beings we birthed have cost us some in housing, food, and education. But their worth is priceless. They have all added more than they have cost us. Now, God is their creator, right? God creates human beings, and he knows their worth even more than we do. They will each play a part in his ultimate plans, and the Bible tells us that his plans are good. "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you," says the Lord, "thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope." And that's Jeremiah 29:11, and that's our family verse. Thank God we did not let government statistics sway us. We took 1,000,000 steps of faith into the black abyss of the unknown, and he built a bridge of bright hope under each of those steps, right? So we stepped out into the unknown of faith, and he rose up a bridge to meet each footstep. Okay, you may not be able to afford children in the eyes of the world, but in God's economy, you will have what you need. This is what he's promised us, and he will fulfill. So if you're liking this, if you've been blessed by this, or if you're just intrigued, I have a whole playlist of these videos on this subject. If you haven't seen them all, I talk about everything from the overpopulation myth to reproductive rights. And I've gone into a lot of different areas of this subject. So, and I called it a mommy's unit study. I'm going to put the link to this playlist in the description on my YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, you can go to my video on my YouTube channel and click on the playlist. I also am going to post this on my blog at momdelights.com. I have a blog on my website, and I'm posting an article that you can click through and find this playlist. And so I hope that blesses you. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.